Meghan throughout this piece. There's also, at the very end, she says Meghan is remarkably at ease with the surrealism of global celebrity. In fact, she seems to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Let me grab this part.
Fuck.
Ooh, sorry, that's all he says.
Stop.
Oh, we're writing again.
Yeah.
That's all she did the whole time. Oh, we're writing again. Like everything was writing.
Oh my God, I know. I know, and I'm going to get to that because, good Lord, there was some terrible interactions between Ms. Markle and her hapless guests.
You might be looking at Meghan Markle saying, well, she's in Harper's Bazaar, she's in a big magazine. Sweetie, this is a major downgrade from being British royalty.
They kind of fucked up their whole thing, went way too hard on we're victims, and they assessed the mood of their generation and America correctly in that we are lovers of victimhood.
Yeah.
But America did finally find a way to say, you know what, we love victims, but you two, we've just had a little too much of it.
Why are there so many people in our car?
It's not a car, Harry, it's bus.
And why does it smell?
We're going to work, Harry, because HGTV canceled our show and we need money.
You can't get work acting, so now you're teaching it, which kind of makes sense and kind of doesn't.
Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only other two people in the house. And we thought the constant monogramming of everything with her initials was bad.
Are we gonna see a new Meghan? No, because Netflix is done. Netflix is done, happy, they're close. That this is a contract. This, unlike her dog, Meghan Markle is not coming back to life on Netflix because this is it for her, this woman, guys. Unbelievably boring, sorry.
The first time South Park went after Meghan Markle in 2025, it didn't feel playful. It didn't feel clever. It felt pointed, almost surgical, because this time they didn't mock a headline or a speech or a press release. They went somewhere far more uncomfortable. They went straight to the body. And South Park does not do that unless something has already cracked in public view. They don't invent rumors. They don't plant seeds. They exaggerate what people are already whispering about in corners, in comment sections, in group chats that end with, I don't know, something just feels off. That's how South Park works. And this time, the exaggeration wasn't random. It was deliberate. The pregnancy parody didn't arrive out of nowhere. For years before that episode aired, clips had already been circulating quietly online. Not paparazzi footage, not leaks, not stolen moments. These were moments Meghan herself allowed into the public space. Carefully chosen images, hospital environments that looked more like sets than sterile rooms, movements that felt choreographed instead of instinctive. A camera always positioned just right for moments that were supposedly private. And the people noticing weren't trolls. They weren't commentators looking for clicks. They were women who had carried children, women who understood weight, pressure, exhaustion, women who didn't analyze frame by frame. They recognized something deeper. Something felt wrong.
Meghan Markle, they've just learned the hardest of lessons, which is, if you start a brawl, do not be surprised if you end up getting punched twice as hard. In fact, South Park has just knocked them out.
The comments all sounded eerily similar. Not accusations, discomfort. This doesn't look right. Why does this feel staged? Why does it feel like a performance? South Park didn't accuse her of anything. That's the part people miss. They didn't explain. They didn't investigate. They simply pushed the visual far enough that the audience had to confront why they already felt uneasy. Some people laughed when the episode aired, others stopped laughing halfway through. And that split reaction is how you know satire has hit exposed skin. It crossed from humor into something colder. Because this wasn't mocking a joke, it was mocking intimacy. South Park is ruthless to everyone. Royalty isn't new territory for them. But this was different. This time, the satire touched something personal. And once satire touches intimacy, the conversation changes. It stops being about whether someone is likable and starts being about whether they're believable. After that episode aired, the mood online shifted. The debate wasn't about whether the joke was funny, it was about credibility, trust, authenticity, whether the constant need to present and document every moment had gone too far. Most public figures would have disappeared after that. Gone quiet, let the noise burn itself out, allowed time to soften perception. Meghan Markle didn't do that. Instead, something else followed, something polished, something controlled, something meant to sound serious and authoritative, something designed to reclaim the narrative. And that's when South Park came back the second time. This time, they didn't touch the body, they touched the voice. The second return wasn't physical at all, it was about authority. And they nailed it. Harper's Bazaar was supposed to fix everything. A prestige magazine, controlled environment, serious tone, carefully chosen words meant to sound wise and reflective. The kind of feature designed to elevate someone above criticism. But the audience didn't respond the way the piece demanded. They didn't argue with her words. They questioned how they were delivered. Older viewers noticed immediately. The cadence felt rehearsed. The emotion arrived on cue. The language sounded written to be quoted, not spoken naturally. Instead of feeling like a conversation, it felt like a performance asking to be admired. People didn't say this is false. They said something worse. This doesn't feel lived. And that's where South Park thrives. Satire doesn't lead opinion. It follows it. When enough people sense a disconnect but can't articulate it, parody sharpens the outline. South Park didn't invent the criticism. They slowed it down. They exaggerated the seriousness just enough that the authority collapsed under its own weight. The joke worked because it barely needed exaggeration. The reverence lingered too long. The insistence on meaning became heavy, and suddenly gravitas turned into something suffocating. After the pregnancy parody, intimacy was questioned. After the Harper's Bazaar parody, sincerity was questioned. When body language feels staged, people doubt closeness. When words feel scripted, people doubt truth. South Park understood that escalation perfectly. They didn't go louder, they went sharper. From physical unease to rhetorical performance, from this looks odd to this sounds rehearsed. And once authority becomes parody, it doesn't recover easily. At this point, two things had happened. Credibility had been shaken. Authority had been punctured. Most people would have stopped there, reduced visibility, let silence work. Meghan Markle didn't. Instead, she stepped forward again, this time into the safest space of all, the home, the family, Christmas. And that's where everything changed. This third return from South Park felt different immediately. The tone wasn't playful, it wasn't curious. It felt almost weary, like the joke had already been told, and now they were just pointing at the pattern everyone could see. This time, they didn't circle around press tours or interviews or public appearances. They walked straight into the one place that's usually protected by instinct alone. The home, the children, Christmas. That's why it landed so hard. Christmas is supposed to soften everything. It's where reputations reset, where people forgive, where warmth replaces skepticism. Most public figures disappear during the holidays or keep things painfully simple because Christmas exposes whatever isn't real. You can't fake ease. You can't fake family. You can't fake joy for long. And yet, Meghan Markle's Netflix holiday special arrived polished, curated, instructional. Every gesture gentle but controlled. Every word warm but authoritative. The message was togetherness, tradition, love. But it felt delivered, not lived. Viewers noticed immediately. They didn't need critics to tell them something was off. Comment sections filled with the same quiet questions. Where is the family? Why does everything feel staged? Why does a holiday built on chaos feel so tightly managed? It wasn't outrage, it wasn't anger, it was something colder. Withdrawal. And then there was the timing. While the special presented carefully planned rituals and moral lessons wrapped in festive decor, real-life headlines reminded viewers that Meghan's own father was seriously ill. No reconciliation, no acknowledgement, no bridge. That contrast didn't need commentary. It hit emotionally all on its own. South Park didn't mock Christmas itself. They mocked performative goodness. They exaggerated the sweetness until it became uncomfortable. The warmth lingered too long. The moral lessons felt transactional. The children felt symbolic instead of present. Everything meant to feel cozy felt staged instead, and people didn't argue back. They nodded. That's what made this third mockery different. The first created discomfort. The second punctured authority. But the third triggered judgment. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't defend or attack. The kind that simply disengages. Netflix didn't step in to soften the blow. The special wasn't pushed aggressively. It didn't dominate the platform. It didn't arrive like an event. Many viewers had to search for it. No protective framing, no guiding hand, no attempt to tell audiences how they should feel. Netflix released it exactly as it was. And that made South Park's timing feel surgical. By the time the parody aired, the audience had already processed the discomfort. South Park didn't undermine the project. They echoed the reaction. They made visible what people already felt. That's why this third mock didn't feel funny to everyone. It felt invasive, because once satire enters the family space, the holiday space, the image of motherhood and home, it stops being abstract. It feels personal. And laughter changes when that happens. It sharpens, it cools. By the end of the third mockery, the conversation had shifted completely. No one was debating jokes anymore. They were looking at the pattern, because 3 mockeries aren't coincidence. They're a diagnosis. And when a diagnosis becomes public, the fallout doesn't stay online. It reaches Which is Hollywood next? Public mockery is survivable. Hollywood mockery is not. This is the part most viewers never see, but everyone inside the industry understands. South Park isn't just a comedy show in Los Angeles. It's a cultural barometer. When they return to the same person again and again, executives don't laugh first. They assess risk. 1 parody is noise, 2 is discomfort, 3 is a warning. By the third mockery, the image had already set. Meghan Markle wasn't being treated as misunderstood anymore. She was being treated as predictable. And in Hollywood, predictability is poison. Because once a person becomes a pattern, every future project carries the same shadow, every pitch is filtered through the caricature, every press appearance risks reopening the joke. Even sincerity starts sounding scripted because the audience has been trained to expect performance. That's what made Netflix's silence so telling. They didn't rush to defend the special. They didn't flood the press with praise. They didn't counter the parody with interviews or messaging. They released it, watched the reaction, stayed quiet. Silence like that isn't accidental. Inside the industry, silence usually means one thing: we're done arguing with perception. Viewership chatter wasn't about enjoyment, it was about fatigue. Words like forced, staged, boring, and inauthentic kept repeating. That's not backlash, that's disengagement. And disengagement is the most dangerous response of all. Executives don't fear criticism, they fear indifference. South Park picked up on that instantly. That's why the third parody didn't feel loud. It felt tired, like the joke had already been accepted. Once mockery stops being shocking and starts being expected, it becomes a label, and labels stick. Opportunities don't vanish publicly at this stage. They narrow quietly. Meetings get postponed. Calls don't get returned with urgency. Doors don't slam shut. They just stop opening. This isn't a collapse, it's a fade. That's what makes this moment different from anything before. This wasn't a scandal, it wasn't a meltdown, it wasn't a headline, it was something colder. The sense that the audience has already moved on and the industry is preparing to do the same. South Park didn't create Meghan Markle's problem in 2025. They documented it. First, they questioned credibility. Then they punctured authority. Finally, they exposed performance inside the home. That order matters because satire escalates the same way trust collapses. It tests, it probes. It returns only when the material keeps feeding it. 3 returns in 1 year isn't obsession, it's confirmation. What South Park captured wasn't cruelty, it was exhaustion. The exhaustion of watching the same narrative arrive again and again, each time wrapped in new packaging, each time insisting it's authentic, each time demanding to be taken seriously while audiences feel something else entirely. By the third mockery, people weren't laughing because it was shocking. They were laughing because it was predictable. And that's the danger zone. Not hate, not backlash, but when the audience feels ahead of the story. When they recognize the performance before it begins. The pregnancy parody planted doubt. The authority parody removed gravitas. The Christmas parody stripped away safety. There's nowhere softer to land after that. Netflix didn't rush in to save the moment. South Park didn't need to escalate further. And the audience didn't need convincing. They'd already decided. This wasn't about one episode, or one special, or one interview. It was about a pattern becoming impossible to ignore. Because when satire no longer exaggerates, when platforms no longer protect, and when audiences stop defending, what's left isn't controversy. It's clarity. And clarity doesn't argue, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, it simply moves on.